Here we are with Dylan Kawalec, lead DevRel for the Goat Network. Welcome to the Defiant. It's great to have you here.
Hi, it's really great to be here. Thank you so much, Camilla.
There's lots going on in the Goat Network, which is a Bitcoin layer 2, and you're now developing the Goat Founders Club. So yeah, let's talk about what the latest that you're up to. Can you start by explaining what the Goat Founders Club is, and what it does compared to other developer programs?
So the Goat Founders Club is the sort of like the builders initiative for the Goat Foundation, right? And the foundation is putting up a points reward program so that we can build towards challenges. And if you do like the challenges, like release a project, or you get total value lock, or you hit certain challenges within your track, you get points, and then points allocate to tokens. So that's what the Founders Club is going to be designed to do, is sort of like a community initiative program. And Goat Network is a Bitcoin layer 2. So all of that is going to happen on top of the network.
Who's the target audience of this program?
I would say any entrepreneur that's looking to break into Bitcoin, and they want to test out the permissionless bridge, right? They want to be able to test out Bitcoin and like being able to access wrapped Bitcoin much easier. And I think for a lot of the developers that we're talking to now, their interests are the same as like the ones that are in Ethereum. So we have that Ethereum environment, to kind of play with, the Bitcoin, so to speak. Mm. So I think that is just let's call it the adoption wave, is the excitement of that testing, I think.
Can you give more details on kind of the timeline? Like when does the program start? And also how much in rewards are you planning to distribute? So
according to the program, there's about 10 million points to be made. And so the points program is not like financial advice or anything. It's like there are points that are to be made, by the developers that are in the program or that are in the ecosystem. But a better way to kind of paint the picture of a points reward program for an ecosystem, I think, is the more kind of the key thing here is, I think point systems in general, people kind of click, and it makes sense that if I do some said challenge, I will get some said reward, right? Mm-hmm. So I think, ecosystem grant programs usually fail to kind of create the model of execution of like how are we going to attract an audience, and then how are we going to give back the funding that's inside of the token program, back to the community. And I think that specific part is what we're trying to kind of key in and focus on, instead of just handing out grants. Like I think a lot of people ran into that mistake a long time ago. We're trying to optimize that and kind of curb around it. Let's create a developer initiative with some point programs for founders, and let's give it to their communities, and also let's give them some benefits and rewards too. So there's a lot of play on this, and so it's sort of its own program on top of the ecosystem. That's, I would say, the key thing about it.
Cool. Okay, and then now let's talk about Goat Network itself. So there's different types of Bitcoin layer 2s. How does Goat differentiate itself?
Well, Goat Network differentiates itself according to other networks because obviously it's a Bitcoin layer 2, mm-hmm. But from what everyone knows about a Bitcoin layer 2 is that it's likely centralized, or that it's likely not, in terms of fairness, it's not necessarily like following the rules of proof of work and so on, right? It's not necessarily layer 1, so we can't necessarily trust it. So I understand that the differences outside of the layer 1 are a lot, and there are lots of various takes on layer 2s, and there's about our team at least say that there's about 90 projects that are out there, and lots of them are different, and they all take on various strains, such as various different execution environments. And I would specify we're an Ethereum environment, and we do a zero knowledge rollup on top of Bitcoin. And what that means is that we create validity proofs and we verify those proofs using Bitcoin. And so Bitcoin is a universal verification layer, and it's great, and it has more of a utility for the world than and it's also very secure because of that. And so all rollups are effectively, in some sense the same, but we're very different in the sense that we're a decentralized sequencing network. I think at one point you had one discussion with Redwan about this, and the decentralized sequencer is our attempt of saying, hey, we have a cost-effective ecosystem building on top of Bitcoin. And I think that's the key here, is like it's the roll-up space, and like in understanding that, in order to make a roll-up network, it needs to be, cost effective in order to generate this idea of yield.
Okay, so this Founders Club program has different tracks, I understand. Can you talk about what these are? And break down how these fit in the program.
Yeah. So the Founders Program is it's a one-stop shop for like anybody to come into the ecosystem and know what to do. That's the point. Like when you walk into an ecosystem, I feel like when I was walking into an ecosystem, when I was first getting into Ethereum, sometimes it felt like a click, or sometimes it didn't necessarily feel like I knew what to do or knew what to say. And I knew a lot of people were kind of scared or intimidated to walk into the crypto club or go to the crypto party or go to the whatever the thing to do to get into crypto. People are different, right? And so because of that difference, we wanted to create several tracks. So you have various options and flavors. So if you think that you have a killer idea for something that can attract a lot of users, but maybe not so much like the transactions, that doesn't matter. As long as you have use, that's fine. Like it can be on our testnet, right? Or if you think that you have some killer app and you want to go for it and you want to, have a request for a proposal, you can do that as well. I think because we lay out all these various options, that's how then we can craft resources inside of the Founders Club for other founders. I like that idea. And we've been playing around with this. And so we say, hey, if founders can't find the right developers, but they're building the same ideas on a Bitcoin layer too, we might as well just like pair them up and like, hey, you and you are building the same thing, and it would be ideal that you work together.
Right. So it's meant to provide just an easy way to get into the ecosystem, to start building there.
It's a network, essentially, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. And then can you talk about the different tokens in this ecosystem and how they all, what role they each have?
So the tokens in the ecosystem are, it's one token. It's just Bitcoin, but they decompose. And so the confusing thing that I think a lot of people, flip up maybe, is the fact that one token can kind of mean another, right? So like the underlying principle of one asset can also be another asset. So like stable coins, the underlying principle is the United States dollar, for example, and like there's the stable coin. So other tokens can represent these other values as well, even for new networks. So I think the hard thing to represent is the token model itself. So it's one token, it's Bitcoin, and then it's a gas token. And then that gas token can lock itself, and then it's a reward token. And then if it's a reward token, it's a yield. And if it's a yield token, it's called YBTC. So there's really two tokens. There's the gas token, GOAT BTC, and then there's like a yield token or YBTC. And then you can almost think of the native token as like an optimistic token like GOAT. It's just a GOAT, and it's the GOAT. And so the GOAT is built for all sorts of things, and we don't really know what it's going to be used for entirely. But I mean, in terms of bridging and like, bridge costs for building, I don't know, maybe Bitcoin bridges or anything revolving around governance around how Bitcoin shares are rewarded to, delegates on a staking network is also included too. So, proof of stakes on various proof sequencers, because there are various sequencers across the entire network. To answer another question that you're not actually asking, which is like, what is this? What is this network kind of built as? Is that it's ultimately an entangled rollup. So each sequencer is going to be proving for other networks as well. So it's not just for Ethereum. It can also transition in phase 3 into, TON and Cosmos and other EVM, whatever the ecosystem is. That's the point of this system. If it can prove this for Ethereum and Bitcoin, it can scale also to the other ecosystems. And that's the interesting thing about zero knowledge virtual machines and why we're using them. Okay,
let's kind of double click on that. But before, I just want to clarify the different tokens that you have, because there is a GOAT token, right? That's maybe an easy way to think about it is like the governance token of the GOAT network.
Essentially, governance is not established yet on the network. It's not mainnet, so the governance of the ecosystem most likely will be in GOAT token, yeah, I would say.
Okay, and then the way to pay for gas in the GOAT network is with GOAT BTC?
Yep, which is basically just Bitcoin.
Okay, but GOAT, it has a different price, right? It's not pegged to Bitcoin.
Yep, exactly.
But GOAT Bitcoin is pegged to Bitcoin.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So, so I like how you're breaking it down. So exactly. So the GOAT BTC is the gas token. Mm-hmm. GOAT is just an optimistic token. And then you have YBTC, which is the reward token.
Okay.
And the reward token's for locking your GOAT BTC. You lock GOAT BTC, and we differentiate this because we have to, because they're all named for various different reasons, because it's just Bitcoin. Like I said, it's just the same token just being locked and then rewards in the form of Bitcoin, and then it gets renamed at these other tokens. But, they have to be named in terms of convention and, in terms of like order in order for the entire system to kind of be able to do its financial guru-ness in a beige paper that we have recently put out, which explains that we're basically creating a zero coupon bond system with the yield that's generated from the decentralized sequencer. So it acts very similar to a pendle. And if you're familiar with how, the decomposition of an asset kind of can create a secondary marketplace for Bitcoin, is the overall idea of like what this network basically provides.
So there's GOAT, which is the native token of the ecosystem. There's GOAT BTC, which is Bitcoin, and you use that to pay for gas. And then when you lock GOAT BTC and you get a reward for locking it, then you get YBTC, like yield BTC. And that's Bitcoin. Is it like actually Bitcoin, or is it like pegged to Bitcoin, but you need to like exchange it for Bitcoin later?
Yeah, it's basically Bitcoin. So the idea is that, there's going to be pools, lots of pools all over the place where people can exchange out for any various asset type of the Bitcoins that are on top of the network. So there's not going to just be, the GOAT various forms. There's going to be other BTC forms as well that we're expecting, likely from other bridge providers as well. So those are all going to be announced, and I can only say so much. But Bitcoin pools with other Bitcoin pools is going to, I think, be pretty popular in the future, because it's going to be something where people can actually trade each other's sort of like private equities of other people's maybe deposits of Bitcoin. And so we're exploring with the idea of doing a lot of this with like DAOs and multi-signatures on top of the GOAT network to kind of manage many different sort of, Bitcoin deposits. Okay. And so, it's basically a multi-chain sort of long-term vision that we have as a network, where we can do this across multiple networks. But, for now, Bitcoin scaling on just one, for example, like just the Ethereum node is hard enough as it is before we go on to like all these other networks. But that's where the technology is starting from. It's starting from that fundamental, we bridge to Ethereum, we can technically bridge to any other L2 and L1.
Okay, so let's talk about this sequencer model and how it's able to bridge to other chains. How does this work?
Yeah, the entire model is built with a prover framework in mind. So this is called the zero knowledge, machine, or ZKM. And so that's the zero knowledge virtual machine. So this is how we can perform a rollup or a validity proof in this case, which, when you're rolling up block space on top of, for example, with layer 2 to a layer 1, Ethereum, we don't have the same state channels that Ethereum has as what Bitcoin offers. So we have to use what's known as BitVM2, which creates a script for us to verify later that we had done and performed some kind of computation on Bitcoin in a very specific manner. And so if you take up a lot of rollup space and then you create a proof that's small enough and compact enough where later I can effectively validate on Bitcoin, Bitcoin layer 1 has upgraded its protocol using Taproot so that we can later verify trace root signatures. And this only means that I can generate hashes and generate sort of like use Bitcoin as a computer. And I can actually create trace roots on Bitcoin and verify them later. And this eventually basically validates the rollup space. And so it turns Bitcoin into a universal verification system, and it becomes yet again another tool. Just like as it could also be a weapon, it can be a financial tool, it can be a money system, it can be a lot of things. So Bitcoin is kind of having its own Cambrian explosion as the L2 scene for Ethereum. I think that's also going to evolve and change in various ways on Bitcoin too.
Okay, let me see if I got that. So the zero knowledge machine, CKM, is able to roll up activity that's happening on the layer 2 network, on the Goat network. And so, you're able to do different, transactions and computation and things that you can't do on the Bitcoin mainnet. And so the system allows it to be more flexible and scalable and so on. And so CKM rolls up this activity that's happening in the layer 2, and then you create some sort of cryptographic signature that you're able to inscribe or download, or I don't know what the word is, into the Bitcoin mainnet. Validate, that's a correct word. You're able to validate this signature, or how do you call it, script?
So you're creating a validity proof on the layer 2. The sequencer is in charge of creating the validity proof because it's the thing that is indexing the layer 2. By indexing, meaning that it is the thing that's relaying the network space with the Bitcoin node. And so this sequencer acts as its own node, and other sequencers have its own sort of, MPC sort of threshold agreement with each node. So they have to agree to each other's consensus. And so we're using Cosmos's BFT unit to create this ABCI relationship using their network stack to kind of frame out how exactly sequencers can relay effectively state transitions with the Bitcoin script. So a Bitcoin script is just a set of functions. I'm just going to call them state transitions in this case. And so we're going to be able to provide Bitcoin or this script. It's basically Python. And we can optimize and basically generate hash functions that create the hash signature that we're creating a validity proof in, and then we can update and append this to Taproot and verify it. And basically later, this is my general framework of understanding the full engineering feat to it, but there's much more complexity to it. I don't want to
We don't need more complexity here. Definitely not.
That was an oversimplification in and of itself. There is way more to it. But I don't want to overstate that. That was an oversimplification. It is more complex to create a BitVM2 script and then decentralize the sequencer rather than doing a centralized sequencing process, because it's much more easy, I would say, in terms of the provability and the risk tolerances that you're going to have to go through as a network engineer. So there are these problems of having to then create a threshold agreement with multiple operators that are doing these zero knowledge proofs in the cloud effectively, right? And we have to be able to prove that these guys are not going to commit something that's like fraudulent. And so these scripts are optimized to be challenge protocols. So they're not just like, oh, give me your validity proof and I'm just going to prove all your rollup space and it's super cheap and then everyone gets a rollup on Bitcoin. It's not like that. It's more of like, you have to be able to prove and then also challenge yourself and challenge the protocol. And you have to create a protocol that others are going to trust, that the committee are going to create valid validity proofs onto network space. And so you can think of the same ideas that you see in Ethereum applied to Bitcoin, but then you also have to apply new rules, consensus methods to the sequencers as well. So that's like painting the picture, hopefully clears that up.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so, but the end result, like what is what's the purpose of this? Like, what are you trying to achieve? Like, why is this important for the end user?
Yeah, I think this is the most important, Bitcoin in general saved my life, and I'm very opinionated about why I care about Bitcoin in general and why it succeeds.
Oh wow! Tell me about
Bitcoin,
that. How did it save your life?
Yeah. I mean, I have a whole story of like getting out of a really, really tough situation, and that was because of the Bitcoin bull run. And I put everything on it, and that was a bad financial decision when you look back at it. Well, I was in the desert and I was lost, and I had to find a way out. COVID, lost everything, lost a lot of resources back then, and then times were hard. My car was broken down. It was 116 degrees outside, and I was like, I had to make a decision, so I put everything on Bitcoin. And
wait, so you were literally on the desert, like, okay. I thought you were speaking figuratively.
Okay, so to paint the picture even more, I was in the middle of the desert. My car was broken down. It was 116 degrees. I was kicked out of my situation. And then I was in COVID winter. It was horrible. Lost the job, and it was awful. It was in Palm Springs. And it was like a month of just like, where do I go from here? And I had some savings, and I was like, I can go move here, here, and here, and I didn't know where to move. And so I just decided to do the stupid 22-year-old thing and just bet it all on Bitcoin. But that was 3 days before it went absolutely bonkers. So that's my Bitcoin story, and I was able to kind of get myself out of a completely crazy situation. Yeah.
What a story. Okay, so Bitcoin saved your life.
And so I want Bitcoin, and what happened after that was that DAOs and these other communities, they brought me in, and it wasn't like meme culture. It wasn't like, all these things. It was more of like educators and and researchers and, developers wanting to build together. And so that inspired me. And I was already in computer science school for a little bit, and I got out and I was looking for other things. And so the Founders Club is an epitome of what I would like to have seen back then when I first entered, and what I would have liked to have seen developers and communities educating one another to create and make an awesome network, really. And the ideas that we share at network events, like these awesome founders that like want to see something happen, but they just don't know how, it's because they just don't have the resources. And so like, I want to try to kind of, over the last 8 years of what I've done in the ecosystem, and from Ethereum to like Cosmos to ecosystems all around, what I've seen time and time again is that like, it's just hard to find the right people to work with. And so the Founders Club is an initiative to accelerate that process. And so that's why it's starting as one of the first programs on the GOAT network, is to basically accelerate the growth of not just like the community, but also of like the education around how developers even build projects on Ethereum. But then it's all on Bitcoin, which is, it's new, and I think that Bitcoin is not going away, and it's very secure in terms of its architecture. And I've gone over it 100,000 times at least over the last 3 years. And I would take up an entire 40 minutes just talking about how that entire stack works. But it's strong, it works, and I trust that zero knowledge proofs are also going to get faster and cheaper as time moves on as well.
Awesome. Okay, but we were talking about this really complex and innovative architecture for Code Network with the different decentralized sequencers and how it proves and validates transactions that happen. And I was asking, why? What's the end goal? Like how do users see this? Like why does it matter for users that you've gone through like all of this like very complex architecture?
Yeah, because I think at the end of the day, it's all about the experience that the user has, and that's from what we're seeing happening globally in crypto. Like there are communities all over the place. There are communities with differing opinions about what people should and shouldn't do, and they're all trying to tap into the same thing, which is user growth and retention. And we understand that there are metrics to be made, but the thing is that in order to sustain those metrics, you need to sustain community, and you need to sustain actual care. And so there were some, I was at ETH Pragma actually just yesterday, and one of our, good friends from Layer Zero was speaking about this same idea about care entering back into the ecosystem. And so I think as far as why do users care about Bitcoin? Well, I mean, Bitcoin first is a free, fair money system that anybody can transact with and verify trustlessly and on a in a public domain. Now, without that, you don't have privacy in a public domain. So layer 2s optimize it in this way. It also optimizes in terms of the speed of the transaction. It also optimizes in terms of the account abstraction, meaning the usability of your Bitcoin, which is in terms of the architecture is built already on L1 to use Bitcoin as a wallet is already complex as it is. So I think more developers want access to a safe allocation of Bitcoin that is decentralized enough away from the core protocol. That way it can be used and leveraged in other ways, similar to how L2s play with like Arbitrum to Ethereum and uses Ethereum for cheaper transactions. It's going to be leveraged in the exact same way. That same need applies on GOAT. And then there are also community incentives and the zero knowledge proof APIs that we're going to be able to leverage for cross-chain functionality natively. So there's a lot of phases, but I'm hoping that you see that from token being basically a tree that decomposes into these assets, not only is its asset yield optimized, its network is optimized to natively bridge as well between state channels, and it's permissionally bridged with Bitcoin. So that architecture is called the entangled rollup, or the universal rollup, as the envisionaries from like ZKM's team have called it. So I like that idea, and I think Bitcoin is just the starting position, and so GOAT network is that starting position for the rest of the network to adapt towards this more super chain / universal chain, all interoperability. This is the same goal that this network has too, and I think that's another major difference why users should care. And it's because the network is going to expand. That means Bitcoin is going to enter as well as going to exit, and then that's going to be fee generation. And when this activity is happening, yield is optimized on this network to then reward you for your Bitcoin. So if you don't if you don't sell Bitcoin, you just hold it. the point is to not sell it. It's to hold it to just earn money. And so that is why the user would want to just hold it here instead. And should be easy to just bridge, and it will be easy. I've seen the interfaces that we've been making, and it's going to be pretty cool to see sort of like a very easy Bitcoin bridge. And you're not going to know why it's so easy, but it is. Nice.
Okay. Great. So it's a way for users to earn yield on their Bitcoin, and also in the future to easily bridge back to Bitcoin, and then in the coming phases also to other chains, right?
That's the big picture idea. Exactly.
Awesome. Okay, and then in this. When this is all working, like what are the kind of applications and use cases that you're excited to see founders build?
Well, I'm excited to see, first of all, I'm specifically looking at markets that are focused in on like the usability, and I think obviously games are interesting, and we've had scenes and all sorts of things, and obviously memes are cool, and I'm going to focus on not only applying, and giving tools to developers that, hey, this is what's hot and here's how to build it, but I'm in developer relations, and so I'm going to try to find the tools that are wanted by the developer community. And so from what the developers want right now, what I'm seeing at least, is that in the Goat Network community is what they want is more, they want to do things around, of course, memes. Memes are hot, and memes are hot for a reason, is because they are, in and of themselves, they are like this like new wave of like money, and it's very odd with what people are able to get away with, and I can't tell if it's legal. I personally don't even invest in meme coins. But I do hold things that are I would say are memes, but like they're dead, and I don't know if they're even memes anymore. Like I can't tell what that is. So but people love it. And so, our job is not to figure out what the users want. It's our job to build the tools that the users love. And if people love using memes, go for it. And so I don't know why I can't find myself buying Boge or whatever they're called. But I mean, that's just me.
Yeah, makes sense. Cool. And interesting to see how you're kind of just like listening to what users are asking for, rather than have like a particular idea or judgment for what they should be doing.
Right. It's like we there's no specific judgment around like what we do or what we want, right? Like, because usually a lot of ecosystems are centralized, where it's like the ecosystem might actually demand something, and then the founders are like, oh no, how dare you go against our liberties, our charter and the things that we have to, prop up here. It's like, like lots of communities rinse and wash and they repeat, and lots of people come in and out all the time. And so that's the whole point of a decentralized community. There's no matriarch, there's no like one pinnacle CEO in anything, unless you want to design a DAO that way, go ahead. But like that's not the point here. The point here is to give you the freedom to kind of come in, give your ideas with other founders that want to like build on top of that same principle. Whatever that principle is, it's free and fair, and the ideas are basically free and fair. So I think things like memes are the obvious choice, where it's free and fair. There are basically unlimited possibilities, and it's a perfect example of what you could do. But that's the thing. It's an EVM. You can build anything that's an Ethereum, like network compatible project. But the ones that are really great are going to be probably the ones that optimize Bitcoin yield, like staking derivatives or LSTs, or probably things like DEX or AMMs. You're also going to see things that are going to likely expand on the nature of NFTs and like how the value of an NFT can be deriving in the value of Bitcoin, and maybe even Bitcoin locked can be the NFT itself. So now you actually have the ability to play around with the smart contracts with Bitcoin, which is really fascinating. And I think the meme culture is going to love doing this, because the contracts, they themselves can be memified, where they purposefully go up and down for no reason. Like, I mean, the tokens themselves now have the flexibility of Solidity, but they are underlining the principle that's underlining their value is Bitcoin. And so the first Satoshi meme basically can be possible, right? We don't have this, and I think homage to the GOAT, right? We might just see the GOAT, right? The meme, right? And we're open to these ideas. But the overarching message that I hope I get across is that it doesn't matter what it is. It can be basically anything, and the ideas are limited to basically your imagination.
Well, it's interesting how like ordinals really took off on Bitcoin, and that wasn't, the ordinals don't use smart contracts at all. Something like that. There's obviously the appetite for memes and NFTs and just like more speculation and fun on Bitcoin, and people just like found a way around it. But with Bitcoin layer 2s and BitVM and like different kind of machine, like virtual machines coming on Bitcoin, now like developers can just like have more tools to make this happen.
That's how I see it too. I see it the same exact way, where I think of it as tooling. I think of it as infrastructure. I think of it as, if I wanted to have the ability in my company to have a decentralized permissionless bridge to plug into, to like basically plug in my Bitcoin feed to my own personal wallet account, I can use this GOAT API to do it. And I think all L1s are treated in the same way. Like L2, its infrastructure is the L1. And so that is the sort of the grounds here, is that the architecture is building on top of other architectures because it's building on top of the same principle, which is, hey, here's a free, fair money system that is super secure, and then we're going to build a network on top of that super free, fair money secure system, and then we're going to optimize that system in ways that users want. And so you can really only scale in certain conditions. You can't scale everything. Like, you can't be like, oh, we're going to be the perfect ecosystem in L2 and no one's going to ever beat us. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, computers are only so big. A lot of this is controlled by a lot of network operations. And so, like, if your thing is owned by other companies, then you have no control. There's no governance over the system if somebody else is deploying your L2. And so we see a lot of this, is that a lot of people are basically contract to hire for other L2s, and they don't even know where the network direction is going. So the thing is that, like, direction in terms of network and governance and like how it applies to Bitcoin, that's not what we're trying to do. We're not governing Bitcoin. That's not the idea here. It's just so that we can build protocols, right? Projects, and get usage of Bitcoin. Like, let's bring Bitcoin to be the number one asset in general. That's the idea of the greatest of all time. It is the GOAT. It is the greatest asset of all time. We should try to enable it as much as possible, go all in. I know I sound super bullish, but I am. I mean, it saved my life. I mean, this thing, I want it to succeed. So there are things that, can all be possible, but if you just all go in on one thing, it will work, and it will work itself out. Now, the bullishness that I have on just GOAT Network is the fact that anyone can be a sequencer. So it doesn't mean that you have to validate just one set. You can validate any set. You can validate other sets. And so we're looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to like what the future of the GitHub looks like, because it's going to be like chain split between the GOAT EVM versus the Cosmos one. So that's going to be interesting as well. Yeah. That's my train of thought on that. There's a lot more thoughts on that, but yeah.
No, super interesting. Okay, and then for developers who want to get started, where should they go? How to like join Founders Club?
Yeah, I mean, we're excited to work with a lot of teams, and we're already working with many teams already, and we're going to network and go to market already. We're partnering with Orme, and we have lots of we have subgraph support, we have DRPC support, we have tools. Basically, we already have tools, and we're going to be bringing those tools in front of developers in our chats. And so you can find us on Telegram on GOAT Rollup, and then inside of Telegram, There is also a community channel. And then if you go to the Founders Club on our website at goat.network, there is a Founders Club tab. You can go there, apply. And then on application, you'll just fill out a quick application form. Tell us about your project. Tell us about what track you're interested in. Please read the information because it gives us more information about like how we can help you. And then we basically network with you into the groups, and then you kind of just build your project and you try to get the challenges that are listed on chain. So that's basically it. And it's awesome because the whole thing is on chain. You get points by doing challenges that the Founders Club is like, yep, we signed that you did it, and here are the points. And then if you do the challenges, you basically have events that are in your smart contracts, and so you earn points on chain. So the chain is naturally built and can also incentivize user growth and founder growth as well. So we're trying to see how this works and how we can start a network where the developer DAO sort of idea can also be a community DAO, an ambassador DAO, wombo combo, so to speak.
Nice. Super interesting how this point system is a lot more developer and like founder focused than most other point systems that I've seen. I mean, most point systems are more targeted at like user behaviors, but interesting here that you're targeting specifically founders and like, you know, builders of Goat Network. So yeah, great stuff, and also love your bullishness. I think that's, you know, that's a way to build things. So thank you so much for coming and sharing all this with us. Super
Absolutely, yeah. No, thank you, and yeah, I'm gonna remain bullish, and never stop being bullish. So
just time on hands.
Thank you so much, Camilla.